There are 4,218 PS2 games, and I'm beating every one of them. I've got to own the game because I'm playing everything on the original hardware, but I've beefed it up with a RetroTink 5X, some component cables, and more to come soon. Can I do this before I die of old age? I hope so. Kingsfield: The Ancient City was developed by From Software and released in the US March of 2002. The Ancient City is the fourth entry in the Kingsfield series, but doesn't continue the story from the first three. Just as the other games, the localization leaves a bit to be desired, as fans have realized some discrepancies between this and the original Japanese text. Holding a 60 out of 100 on Metacritic, can I beat this 3D action RPG? When the light is strong, the darkness is also strong. Long ago, ancient people lived between the light and dark. To them, it was too chaotic, and so they chose the quiet dark to keep them at peace. Before long, they gave the darkness power by worshipping it, and it devoured them. To spare the rest of the world from their mistake, they sealed themselves away with the darkness and left a warning. Years passed by, and the forest folk came and built a city over the top of the remains of the ancient people. It was a beautiful city, pierced by a central tower that connected several floors and facilitated different living sections. As it grew, many were invited to live there, including the earth folk. The king of the forest folk would devote himself to the light, founding a priesthood that would keep the delicate balance between the light and dark. In time, though, as the city expanded, a dark shrine was uncovered, and the king forbade entry. The prince would defy his father, but before he could unleash darkness, he would be exiled. The king began to grow closer to the light and became unwell. The prince was eventually let back in, but the allure of the darkness was too great. Someone would finally release the shrine from its shackles, and in doing so, doom the entire city. War was waged, some would fight, some would flee, and one would use forbidden knowledge to create life. Life which would eventually go mad. In the end, the dark would prevail. It would take the city, and eventually continue beyond this. In present time, the ancient city was but legend, and the human kingdom of Helidon close by would thrive. One day, a stranger presented the king with an idol, a gift he accepted with great interest. The king would never let the idol from his sight. It was a mistake, as the idol brought about disaster. Sages found the idol was cursed and was most likely from the shrine said to be buried under the ancient city. A band of adventurers led by the sword master Septigo would attempt to return the idol to the city in hopes it would likely be destroyed. They were never heard from again. Eventually, Prince Devian of Azalin would receive the idol himself from a masked figure. Hearing that his friend and teacher Septigo had never returned, he realized the mission had failed. Devian decided to sneak into the ancient city and return the idol himself. So I really liked Kingsfield: The Ancient City. I liked it very, very much, and it's so close to getting an S on my tier list, and I think there's only a couple things that stop it from being up there that I really wish were just a little different, and otherwise the game is just so interesting. Obviously, this is from the company FromSoft, which is obviously known for Dark Souls, so a lot of people think this is before Dark Souls there was Kingsfield, which, sure, yeah, this was a game they made in their past, and it is slightly like a blueprint for Dark Souls, but it's not Dark Souls. It's just not. In fact, it would be great if today they would come back and make more Kingsfield games, because they are very different. They're just very different games. Even though the storytelling might be slightly similar, the game itself has just a very interesting atmosphere, and the storytelling is still vague, leaving enough room for the person playing to kind of piece things together themselves, but also enough to give you something to work with. Otherwise, it would just be nothing. So please join me in an interesting journey through a game that was very, very fun, and I think you should play if you like these types of games. This is a first-person action adventure type game where you really do a lot of exploring and fighting, and of course, being in first person gives it an interesting atmosphere. Definitely feels like you are the character, which is kind of cool. This game is very slow, and that's actually one of my big problems with the game, is that it's so utterly slow. Now, this is partly because design choice maybe, but a lot of it is because the faster you would move, the less the environment would stream in. This game does not have any loading except for using a fast travel near the end of the game, which even then, it's very fast. It's not a lot of loading. The game just doesn't need to be loaded a lot, but the game then is made in such a way so that the environments will stream in while you're walking. So you can walk from one end of the game to the other. So it does feel weird, but that's partly design choice. So it's interesting how slow the game is. I think it holds it back from the S tier for me. So partly this means that the controls are something you got to pay attention to. You can actually go change some of the controls. It's really weird because you turn left and right using L1 and R1, and there's no way to fix that. There is a way to change your left analog stick to be move forward, move backwards, and strafe left and right, but then the only other thing to change is making L1 and R1 or L2 and R2 move left or turn left and right, which makes it feel a little bit easier to control, in my opinion. Obviously, that's closer to what controls we have today. You might need to change the controls, but everything you do is slow. Looking around, turning, everything is very weird. As you play through the game and you equip different weapons, you'll fight enemies and you'll get level ups, which is why you see that level up screen there. You also see me die here. This is not something you see very often, but this first part I died a couple times. It was a little funny. But the level up screen shows that you have HP and MP. You also have physical and magical strength. These increase as you level up by fighting and killing enemies. And it's kind of slow going at first. When you fight bosses, you get quite a bit more experience, but there's nothing crazy to it. It's just level up and you get a little extra stats. It's never something you need to watch out for that much. But it's still kind of cool because it helps you through the rest of the game. You need to level up so that you are on par with the stats of the enemies and you don't just immediately die. The lower your health, man, you really get screwed. So you got to make sure you're fighting enemies often. Running past enemies is possible, but fighting them more often than not results in staying within their stat range. So it's kind of important. But at the top of the screen, you get to see several different bars all over. You have the big orb, which is your health. This kind of looks like Diablo's health bar. Then you've got the C shape around it, which in my game here, it's empty, but that's because that is your mana meter. Once you get mana for the first time, once you're able to get MP, then that will start to fill up blue, and then it will go down for just your mana meter. Then you have 2 meters on top of each other. To the right side, there's a red meter that's all the way up and an empty meter, which ends up being blue as well. The red meter is your stamina. When it's all the way up and you swing your weapon, it will do max damage. At halfway, it will do 50%, and I think below that, it always does 50. I'm not really sure. I just know that you want to wait until it's full because of a couple other things I'll explain in a minute. But you want to wait till it's full for the 100% damage and weapon durability. But the bar below it is supposed to be blue, and that is kind of the same thing. It's magic stamina. You can only cast your spell when your magic stamina is all the way up, separate from your regular stamina, so that you can manage both of them. I guess it's kind of fine. It's not a big deal. I mean, I'm glad that they separated them, and it does come into play because casting magic and then immediately attacking is possible, and it also drains those things as you sprint, because to sprint you lose your stamina, but also your magical stamina. So you can't just sprint around and cast spells and attack very easily. So you've got to make a choice. Are you sprinting? Are you attacking? Are you using magic? So all those things come into play as you play. And then the small bar underneath is your breathing bar, which you're not underwater very often, but it's enough that you need to see it so you know how much breath you have left. And there are items to help your breath last longer, but that's it. There's no upgrading of their breath bar. It's simply just one bar that'll work the entire time. As you explore and kill monsters, you'll find items and money, and you'll use those on shops and to equip your character. You have several different equipment slots to equip things, and weapon slots to equip lots of different types of weapons. You can have shields, you have an amulet, a wrist piece, and a one ring, and then you can also equip magic when you get magic. It's interesting. So obviously your sword determines your swing. If you swing vertically or horizontally, the weapon has its reach, and some of the weapons are shorter reach. Some of them have magic abilities. Your armor comes in just plain old armor, and then armor that has resistances to certain things. Also, some of your armor, or at least some of the things that you wear as accessories, like your wrist and your ring and your amulet, have special abilities that are only found on those things, like draining mana to give you something else, or to give you increase your health, increase your mana in general, increase magic power. And so all those things will help you get further in the game, and as you understand what weapons you should use and what armor you should use in different areas, You also then have to worry about durability because things can break. They never really came into play too much with me because if you move through the game at a decent pace, you'll never run out of durability with a weapon before you find more. And you can just switch between stuff. If you keep leveling up as you go through the game, your physical stat will be high enough that you can swing any weapon and deal a decent amount of damage. So you can switch weapons frequently, and at first it seems like that's a good idea, but there's also a level to your weapon, which is kind of weird. You have a level to your magic, but that's simply using it, and that never runs out. But weapons with durability can. There is a way to repair them, but it's not till later in the game, so at first you're at the mercy of just how much durability you have, and the fact that you want to level your weapon from 1 to 3, it gets better as you level it up, and some weapons can shoot magic out of them at level 3, so you want them to be there, but by the time they get there, the durability is really low. And the lower the durability, the less a piece of armor or weapon will give you stat-wise. So the weapon will have lower damage, and the armor will have lower defense. So you've got to watch that. And again, once you start getting through the game and you make sure you explore and you find enough stuff, it won't matter. You'll find enough stuff to change, and that will never come up again. At the beginning of the game here, we sneak into this village right outside of the ancient city. We must find our way in, and on our way in to get there, we've got to equip ourselves and kind of get prepared. So we are not actually in the ancient city yet. We're just on the outskirts, where we'll find some soldiers from the adventure party with the swordsman Septigo, who I talked about earlier. They're here. You'll see some of those soldiers around. At the very beginning here, we see one soldier who is kind of lamenting the fact that he is left behind. He was scared. Things were not going well. People were losing their mind, and like darkness is practically seeping up from the ground. So a lot of them are going mad or getting fought by monsters. He was just not having it. So he's sitting on a rock, and he tells you a very small amount about the fact that he has no clue where anyone is. It's all going to shit, and you need to be careful. And actually next to him, he has a club that you'll get for your first weapon. And you want to explore this area because there's a ton. You need to explore everywhere and click on everything. Look for hidden walls, which you must just simply walk up to and click X on. There aren't a ton, but there are enough that you'll want to check the walls. This also serves as a secondary feature because a lot of the walls will have messages written on them, left by people who died or were dying in the ancient city to leave some kind of warning or to explain something. So you want to check everywhere. It's really helpful to fight all the monsters in each area, and this first area isn't actually not too bad. These monsters are pretty easy to fight. As you fight them, you'll want to circle around them, circle strafe. I mean, that's a very common tactic. So you want to circle strafe them and fight them. This very opening part is a little slow, but helps introduce you to kind of how the game works. This poor old guy here is trying to get back to his wife, but I don't think it's going to happen, buddy. Yeah, this bridge is out completely. I don't even think there's a way to repair it. In this game, the save point is a statue with wings, and anytime you go to it, you can save your game. There's really no limit to that, and when you die, it's permadeath. Like, you die and you must reload from a save. There's no losing some souls or anything like Dark Souls. No, this is, you die, you have to restart from your save, so make sure to save often and know where your save points are. Always look out for them because it's really important in this game. After exploring for a bit, I find this little girl and her mom who is inside of a miner's shack where a bunch of miners have come to live and mine down closer to the ancient city because there's rumored to be a bunch of good stuff. One of those things is a rock of life, which is believed to cure things, but really the rock just has some special water that seeped into it from a spring that was used in the ancient city before it was ancient, and it would cure diseases, and it was actually taken away, so these rocks are just what's left over, and so they do help a little bit, but it's not really safe to be finding this stuff. And so her father, this woman's husband, is down in the mines looking for a rock of life to save her. Here is the Temple of Oath, which is a place right between the outside village and the ancient city entrance. This is actually the healing spring right here, but it's completely dry, so there's nothing there to heal you. On this stone in the Temple of Oath, it's obvious that they were trying to work together, the Forest Folk and the Earth Folk, a long time ago, and it's the Temple of Oath, so they were trying to live peacefully in the ancient city until they fucked it up. Here's a little bit of combat on like a faster enemy, the spider, at least at first it is, because it can turn around very fast. But you just gotta wait for that stamina bar to go up and circle strafe them and just whack him a little bit. He's not too hard to kill, but if he jumps at you, it's hard to get out of the way. So one of the things I did was, if you dodge left and right by pressing left and then pressing your sprint button, it doesn't matter if you have any stamina. You don't need stamina to actually sprint. It just drains it until it's gone, and then you'll have to stop and wait for it to come back. But you can sprint at any time. So you can swing your weapon and immediately hold down sprint and then just dodge left and right, which is a really good way to kind of come in and do some damage and get out of the way. You can really bait enemies into big attacks and take advantage of the openings. Standing in the Temple of Oath is Chad, this guy leaning up against a wall here, who is a thief who's come here to plunder some cool shit from the ancient city. I mean, who wouldn't want to? I don't know why, though. It's rumored to be terrible down there, but he's up here messing around, and he says if I give him a rock of life, he will give me a crystal vial, which is actually really helpful and important to do. The problem is now we have two people asking for rocks of life, and they sound pretty important, so I guess our first mission is to find some rocks of life. David here owns a shop, and he actually says when you talk to him at one point, he sold his map to an old man. Now, there was a map in here, and it would be really great to have. Not that the maps are great in this game, I don't really like them, but we need to find this old man in this map. He also sells a crystal, which is how you learn magic in this game. You must find these crystals, and once you buy them, you use them, and it will refill your mana, which is kind of nice in the middle of battle, to refill your mana. And then you learn a new spell, and you can use it as long as you have the mana to cast it. For some reason, down on the bottom of his shop, there's just an open door leading to a graveyard. Now, actually, before this, it was covered, but the old man bought the map. Now, the old man came down this way, which the shop owner tells you he made a mess back here. He's got to clean it up. So you can come down here and clean it up for him. Coming around the corner after fighting those skeletons, we find these weird tree enemies. They are real enemies, and they will send roots from under the ground up and stab you. You've just got to be careful when you're walking around them. But most of the time when you're fighting enemies, if you have a full swing, like a full stamina swing, and you do enough damage, it will stun enemies. And early on, you have the ability to do this as long as you pay attention. These guys are a little tough, but if you just circle strafe again, you can get away from their attacks. But inside this church is the old man with the map. He says that he wants to save his wife, but he can't because there's a bunch of monsters. Out the back here is a bunch of skeletons. I actually fight like 10 or 11 skeletons, and it's pretty freaking tough back here. And the sad thing is that when you come back into the church, a skeleton is snuck in there and killed the dude. He leaves you a key. You can come back here into his cabin and grab a map. And actually, this area is pretty much complete over here. We won't come back here again. In the Temple of Oath, down a small stairwell with a dead end, you'll actually find that it's an illusory wall, and you can just walk up and press X. It's really easy to tell because the skeleton on the other side wants to come kill you, and his sword pokes through the wall, kind of letting you know. I mean, I have to assume they meant for that to happen so you could find out what a hidden wall looks like. But you fight this guy. I mean, at the beginning of the game, he's tough. He's got armor and a shield, and there's a skeleton in the treasure chest behind him, so you have to fight two of them. Although he does give you a shield, so it's really helpful in the beginning of the game. You can't use shields like you do in other games. It's just a stat stick on you for some defense, but it is helpful to get early on for some defense. So you got to fight this guy. You can dance between the wall, opening the door and hitting him, or, leading up to the stairwell. He can't come up the stairwell. For some reason, he can't. In small, tight spaces, in some parts of the game, you can make enemies get confused, which will be really helpful because these guys can hit you hard, especially early to mid game. Enemies are tough. Out back behind the Temple of Oath, you can find a mine that is full of poison. Not only just regular poison, which can kill you if it gets you. There's no bringing it to 1 HP and then letting you heal. You die. You can get poisoned by the slimes. You can get poisoned in different spots around the mine. And the mine is full of the miners who came looking for rocks of life and who died. I mean, the darkness is no joke, so you need to be careful when you're down there because if you die, you're gonna turn into a zombie. So there's no miners left. There's one dude down there, and the whole idea is to go to the woman's house and grab the antidotes that she left around. There's these little plants that are antidotes. You can grab them, and then you can go deep in there without getting poisoned too much and try to take on all of these undead miners and little slimes on the ground. The undead miners are poisoned by the darkness, and they spew out gross bile and stuff. They're a little difficult to fight because obviously you don't want to get too close and step in it, but their pickaxe swings, man, they're tough. Luckily, there's a little healing spring in the side of the cave. It just kind of helps you get used to the fact that you're going to get your butt kicked and you have to come back here and get this. It does run out though. You can drink this thing dry. So be careful if you need to drink a lot. Just know it runs out. Exploring the mines allows you to find a dead miner under some rubble who has a rock of life. You can take the rock of life and get out of there. It's a little dangerous down there, man, I'll be honest with you. And sadly, I think it's this woman's husband. So you bring the rock of life back to her, it heals her, and her daughter's happy, so she gives you a magic spell for free, which is your first magic spell. In fact, it is necessary to move on. It's the fireball spell. So you learn it, and you're able to shoot fire at a door covered in spider webs, which will allow you access into the top part of the ancient city. Now, casting magic in this game is really weird because you don't just, like, your character does not innately have magic. It's very small amounts. Even when you level up all the way, you really don't have a lot of magic. So behind this woman's house, after I learned that you can break the boards on doors with either fire or a pickaxe, you can break the boards on this house out behind this miner's shack, and you'll find the bracelet that gives you a ton of mana. Like I said, you start with like 1, 2, or 3 mana. This bracelet, the clarity bracelet, will give you tons of mana to use, and suddenly you're able to cast spells way more often than, well, once, but you're able to pretty much main using magic for quite some time. So it's really important to get that. In fact, I used that the entire game. There's no reason to use anything else. The magic's actually pretty good, so it's worth having. So make sure to get a pickaxe and break that stuff behind there so that you can get the clarity bracelet so you can cast magic as much as you want. It's clear going down here that no one has come through this way in a long, long time. I mean, everything is covered in spider webs. Spiders spawn every time you kill them. You just can't get away from it because, well, no one was down here to cull them when they started moving in. Like I said, exploration is really important because you'll find chests, you'll find things on the ground, you'll find hidden walls. This thing in particular I found was a mushroom that heals your MP, just kind of like herbs on the ground will heal your HP. You'll also get herbal liquid, which can heal you. Magic will heal you, but you need to make sure you get this stuff. Resources are actually pretty finite in this game. You can run out of it if you aren't being somewhat careful. A lot of the merchants in the game only hold so many of an item, and once they're gone, they're gone. I never saw them restock their items unless they moved. Sometimes they restock, I think, but don't take my word for that. It's possible they don't, in which case it will screw you if you just waste away all those mushrooms and healing items, because eventually you won't ever be able to use magic again if you somehow exhaust all forms. There is something you can do later to at least help, and I'll explain that when I get there, but for now, make sure to explore everywhere. This is only the top part of the ancient city, and we're already in a graveyard. This is just sad. Here next to a poisoned pool of water is Mista, who tells us don't drink the water, but it's a little too late for me because I already drank it. Because I'm an idiot. I saw it and I thought, oh look, another healing spring. Nope, it poisoned me. So I learned a little too late. But this guy wants to go forward and he doesn't remember why. He wants to go through this door. He said it's locked, and there are 2 stones that you can place something inside of. Next to it, you've got to find these release keys. This is something you'll find quite a few times in the game, release stones, and you put them in these little plaques and it will open the doors. And actually on the side of the room here is a cool little thing. This hole in the wall has a magic crystal inside of it. If you hit it somehow, you can send it downwards and go underneath and pick it up, which is pretty cool. So I use a fireball to melt the spider webs around it, and then it falls to the floor underneath, and then I get it. There's a dying soldier in one of these rooms who says that he feels bad he left everyone, but he's dying and he was scared and he just wants to die. He said it's terrible. The people who are dying in his group are raising from the dead, and we see them right here. These are actually members of the adventurers that came in with Septigo, and they are just dying off, and you can see that things are not going well for them, and that's why we haven't heard back from them. They did not complete the mission of bringing the idol back, which sucks for them. I mean, you know, that guy's sad, and you know what? The next time that you see him, he's dead, and when you kill them, you see a little bug crawl out of their corpse. I don't know if you can kill the bug or not if you're quick enough, but clearly something has like diseased them. Those bugs have crawled into them. Maybe they didn't even know. Maybe those bugs had eggs laid in them and then they grew, and that's what's happening. But you just see tons of corpses everywhere. The area here starts to widen out and we get a lot more to explore. There's some arrows being automatically fired from some traps, obviously to stop people from getting to this door. You can turn those off. You can also pick up some of the arrows on the ground, and that kind of leads me to believe that there's going to be a bow soon, which is neat. And you also see tons more corpses. You fight skeletons. This part's a little difficult because it starts to get a little bit more windy. You have a lot more of the game open, and something before this area can be important still. So you need to search everywhere. There are large guardians that are automatic and will hunt down bad guys and stop them from, well, getting to the earth folk and the forest folk, honestly. And to use them, they have these pedestals which allow them to see. And if you put a blinding crown on them, they cannot see. So then they stop, they go back to where they were, and they rest. So the whole idea is to use them as this cool like force to stop people from coming in. You take the crown off and they can go around and beat stuff up. And that means you've got to watch out for these guardians by using these blinding pedestals. This game does a great job at environmental storytelling, and that's through messages on the walls and just through the things you see. Now, this one seems really obvious, I know, but this is a good example. As you're exploring, you see one of these guardians who's broken down with 2 arrows in his eyes. This means use the bow and arrow when you get it to shoot them in the face. That's all it means. It's simple. The game doesn't tell you, it doesn't show you through like a tutorial. It shows you by showing that there's a broken down guardian with 2 arrows in his face. As long as you're paying attention, you'll see it and you'll understand what you need to do. Somewhere along the way, I find a red stone that fits into this marker. This will be important later, so make sure you place this red stone in here. I eventually make my way to the top of this room where the auto arrows are firing, and you can pull these little levers to stop them, allowing you access to the door. While exploring around, I finally find those release rocks where I go back to Mista and I put them in the door. It opens to a large graveyard yet again, but this one's full of skeletons. There are so many skeletons. This one's a little bit difficult. You gotta use your fire spell, you gotta use your melee well. The skeletons can get stuck on graves. You can open and close the door to confuse them, which is a really easy way to fight big groups of enemies, is using a door. They don't always know how to go through it, and they'll turn their backs, allowing you to actually swing your weapon. Plus, after a minute, you level up your magic spell just by using it. It gets stronger, you're able to kill these guys a lot quicker, but the whole idea here is that once you clear this out, once you kill all the skeletons, you come back and talk to Mista, who says, oh, right, I forgot I have one of those keys on me. He has one of the release rocks, but there's another door on the end of this area, right back here, that actually needs another one. So he just couldn't get in the first door, but he's old and forgot. So he hands you the release rock, you come back here and you actually find a magic bottle of water, which is the bottle of water that powered the spring outside the Temple of Oath. So this is really important. Now we just need to find where we need to put it. Whenever you do something in the game near an NPC or just in general, talking to them again might get you some additional text, which is really helpful because it helps to flesh out the story. This game is definitely a lot about environmental storytelling, and these NPCs see when you do something and they will give you some more information. This guy isn't the biggest source of information. There are a couple other NPCs you'll want to talk to more, but they definitely give you something to hold on to, something that will bridge the gap between other pieces of text that you find on the walls, on gravestones, in notes, in your own notes, as well as other NPCs. The NPC in this room that you find earlier that says that all his friends are dead and he's hiding in here hoping he dies actually has a special item that will open a door right outside. It's not obvious the first time, but once you come back in here and talk to him and you have to kill him because he's gone mad, you get the item, you can turn around and open this door. This door actually leads to the source of the healing pool, or at least where the healing pool source used to be. Once you open the door, it's actually guarded by this enormous spider. You can take him out pretty easily by just strafing between the door opening and closing, shooting the fire spell at him. It's really not too hard. I didn't actually go in the room. I'm pretty sure you can go in there and circle strafe and deal a decent amount of damage to him, but he's pretty easy to take out this way. After beating the spider, you can get yourself a cool magic crystal, as well as use the icon of healing you got from that old dude near him, at least the room that you unlock near him, and it will activate the pool above you back near the Temple of Oath. This is where the pool was originally, and it was actually taken away. So what happened is that the forest folk gave the humans, the children, this pool to heal their wounds and anything that happened to them. But when the darkness started to consume things, everyone fought over the healing water, and he was pretty upset. The guy who made this was pretty upset, so he took it away from them so that they wouldn't fight over it. And that's why it wasn't here in the first place. Well, now it is, so you can go up to the pool and heal yourself anytime you want. You can also take a crystal vial that you get, like the one you got from Chad earlier by giving him a rock of life, and you can fill the vial with the healing water and bring it with you, like a refillable potion, like an Estus flask. Now, you get several of these throughout the game. Anywhere you find a pool of water, you can fill the vial and bring it with you. Right outside the first shop in the game, near the beginning of the game, there's a well that if you fall down inside of, you die. But if you wait a little while until you have more HP, you can survive the fall. And there's some stuff down here to get. You can lower the water level, you can get a magic crystal, it'll make it easier to get back and forth between two areas, as well as a hidden sword behind a wall, and a few enemies that are difficult to fight. I really don't like fighting them, but this area is kind of neat because I don't even know if you have to go down here. Exploring further down past all the arrows that I stopped in the Guardians, there's even extra Guardians that you find that you need to blind so you can get past them for now. You will find the Central Tower. At the beginning of the video, I talked about a central tower that pierced the middle of the city and separated the different spots or the different locations people would live in the city, as well as by different floors. There are 3 floors that you'll go through, and this central tower will lead back and forth between all of them. However, as you can see, there are broken spots all around this area, and so you can't get everywhere you need to go at one time. You've got to take it slow and find the next spot to go. This game is a bit linear in that fashion. It doesn't feel like it though, because of how directionless the game really is. The whole idea is that a lot of the stuff we do isn't necessary to beat the game all the time, like the icon of healing. I don't believe we need to do that to beat the game. Instead, it's something you find and you want to learn more about. Maybe it's helpful, maybe it is important. Who knows what happens? Maybe doing something will activate an NPC to do something else. Maybe it will bring a new NPC in. Maybe something will happen because of what you do. So the whole idea is that you are curious about all of the things going on around you. So it is linear in a way where you just walk from one place to the next, exploring every door and finding every item, and then trying each of the items in different spots in the game. But it just doesn't feel like that. You have so much freedom to go around. You're not told what you do, except for your only goal is to take the idol back into the ancient city. So that's the only thing you have going. So everything else is all curiosity. Are there any hidden doors? What are these items? How do I get past this? And you do get past them because, again, if you just search around, you'll find everything you need. There are some difficult to figure out things you need to do. And when I get to those, I'll explain why it's a little difficult to figure them out. I think sometimes it's a little too much in a few areas, but it's not very often where I ran into such a large issue I couldn't figure out where to go, or just look around a little bit better and find a door I missed or a place I had missed exploring. Around some of these areas, you're going to find mushrooms that will poison you if you walk into them. Of course, you don't want to do that. So you can do one of two things. You can use magic, or you can hit them with your sword by waiting for them to do their poison attack and then backing up, and then the second that thing is finished, walk forward and smack it with your sword. You absolutely have enough time to do that, and you don't have to waste your mana. And it's actually fairly easy to do. They don't take very much damage, so you can pull out a weak weapon and do it. These snake-like creatures might resemble some from Dark Souls, and that's because they probably are a little bit like that. But, I mean, this came first, so... Well, anyway, these guys are called Witta, and they are made from a large snake creature, and her name is Witta, and these guys are the ones that have been taking out the adventuring party with Septigo, and they are terrifying. They do like terrible things. They eat people, they just eat anything, and if they bite you, their venom will eventually turn you into one of them. It's kind of like a zombie, except that you still have consciousness. You just now want to help the Witta rather than be nice to your comrades. So if you get turned into one, you're most likely going to eat your friends. Anyway, we find a key on this corpse here, which means you need to be checking every corpse, every gravestone, everything you can click on, you need to look at, man. There's stuff that you can't see. You won't see it physically. Sometimes you just won't. So you've got to click on everything. And yes, that does sound like a chore, but you will also find a lot more in the environment, story-wise, that will help you learn where you need to go if you're clicking on everything. If you're looking for those words etched into the wall, if you're looking for random things to try out, that's how you play this game. One of my favorite parts of exploring is finding a shortcut back to a part, that way you can get back there easier. Now, this is obviously very much like Dark Souls, where you are opening different entrances, exits to areas, and making shortcuts around the map, because everything is connected in a way. I mean, this is built to somewhat feel like a regular city would feel, with doors being locked because they are simply the person's belongings are in that house, that area. So you'll see a door locked by this key, and this key, the engineer's key, will open up the engineer chests, which will contain things the engineers used, and the engineer's quarters, which they would have locked so that no one came in to kill them. Although you'll find the key somewhere on an engineer who may have been trying to escape and then died. So a lot of it feels like it makes sense. This key is here because an engineer tried to escape and couldn't, and then no one grabbed the key because the darkness isn't like grabbing a bunch of keys, they're just wandering around killing stuff. So if you can find the key, well, then you can get into their quarters and figure out what's in there. After walking through some of the rooms around the central tower, we find this guy right here who gives us a bow and arrow, which is great, man. This is how we beat those guardians. Now, some of those guardians are protecting items that you cannot get until you shoot them and kill them so that you can get past them. You just can't run fast enough. They attack and kill you in one hit, and you're not going to get around them. They're too big for the hallway that they're in. And the important thing about this is you kill them with the bow and arrow, and then you take the blinding crown, the binding placement thing that stops them from seeing and attacking you. You have to take those. You can't just leave them. You need to take them, because later on you will find other areas with guardians that if you put these blinding things on statues, you can make it easier for yourself, which is kind of cool, right? Like, it's you got to think ahead a little bit, like maybe we'll see this again. And because you don't have an inventory limit, you might as well grab those items and take them with you. I never figured out what this room in the central tower was supposed to do for me, but it's very clear that this wall has lights that light up when you obtain new magic. You can see the symbols on the wall behind the lights, and if you click on it, that one says this one governs dark. If you get the dark magic crystals and learn those spells, you will eventually light all of those lights up. Now, I know I missed a few because I wasn't able to explore everything before I happened upon the end of the game, so I missed a few magic spells here and there, and I wonder what will happen, but I'm sure something useful will appear. I'm not really sure why aliens are here, but they definitely look like aliens. I mean, everyone in the chat kept saying how these are definitely aliens. I'm like, yeah, dude, they really seem like aliens, but these guys are just total darkness monsters who are wandering around this area, who have taken out everyone. I mean, these guys are fast enough and smart enough to do it, so these are the guys to dispatch in the city to get them. After killing some of these guys in some of the rooms, there aren't just crates, but there are these big, what look to be coffins, or at least something like that. You can actually move some of the tops of them by clicking on them from the correct direction. Yes, you must click on them by looking down at the right angle and from the right side. If you don't, you will miss items that are very helpful. Not all of them can be moved, so you might as well try all of them. But it's important to do. I mean, you gotta click on everything, like I said, from every angle. After passing through quite a few aliens and bats and getting out of the way of the dragons, we reach a forest. A very interesting forest, one that the forest folk originally used before the city was built and after the city was built, of course. This place is very symbolic for many reasons, and to me, it really encapsulates the very first line of the video. When the light is strong, the darkness is also strong. When the dark is strong, the light is also strong. It's important to remember that the trees are the true bridge between the light and the dark in a couple ways. And the way that I see it most is that below the trees is the shrine for darkness, and above the trees is the light. In between the trees here, where you can live, where the light isn't necessarily coming down super strong, but there are also dark patches, is a balance between the light and the dark. Now, there are other things to talk about too. The fact that, you know, that the roots of the trees are down in the dark and the tops of the trees are up in the light. But just in general, like, you are in the middle of the light and the dark, the safe place to be, where one isn't stronger than the other. It simply just is. They can exist with each other without being more powerful than the other. Looking around here are very important things, including this golem who can't move next to a door that won't open. And on the other side is an NPC that will be invaluable for the rest of the game due to both her voice lines and what she does for you. Her name is, I don't know how to pronounce this correctly, but Aeane. Aeane? I'm not sure. Her last name is Vigil, but she is the last priestess of the forest folk, which is invaluable at a time like this when we're trying to fight the dark and stop things. Now, she has a lot of exposition. She explains some of the things that I talked about a little bit, but also just in general helps figure out where the king's room is, because it is her father is the king, or she calls him that, but she's a priest. But she explains that the way to make the golem move is to get him food. Now, she doesn't explain what the food is, but we go into one of the small dungeons nearby her to get the food for him. In the dungeon next to the priest, you'll find forest dew, which is collected and made by the trees using both its roots and its leaves, and this is the food for the golem. Once you're able to feed him, he's able to come alive long enough to help open the door. And this is actually something they used all the time to help protect them, as well as just do things. So this is what you need to feed the golem. Past the golem and the door that he finally opens is probably the most important area of the game. The king's chambers, as well as the room of wands, which help with teleportation around the city, which is something they used to use to help get through the city easier since it's a very large city. And this is where you're going to find some skeletons inside of a room that looks very kingly, as well as a door that says you must be a king, or at least kingly, to enter this door. And there are other things that you need to do here too. There is an area that I went into where I got destroyed by this dude. This area is very important, but I won't explain it until later because I'm not a high enough level, nor do I have enough stuff to be here. There are 4 armed guards stopping you from getting close to the light, which is what the king became enamored with and ended up being poisoned by. These guys are still here guarding it, and you can tell that even though it's light, you are poisoned with this purple thing on your screen. It's just this filter, and you're hurting, but it's not anything specific necessarily. You can use a special item or items you get to heal it, but you get light poisoned. Obviously, I'm not ready for this part of the game, so I'll go back and check some of the gravestones, as one of the graves contains a key. You also pick up 3 of the 5 wands, which I don't think they're necessarily wands, but that's what they're called here at least. Now, these wands are helpful because this is how you teleport. The markers where I placed the red stone in are actually the way to teleport. You teleport to those stones. Now, here you say I use a green key and nothing happens. What you have to do is stand on a lit up magic circle on the ground. They are kind of in random spots sometimes, as well as near save points, and it will help teleport you to an area you've already been to. However, at this point in the game, there is nowhere left to go, but you need to use the green wand. You have the blue and the red marker stones already in stone placements somewhere in the world. The blue one is already in one spot, the red one is when you pick up and can place wherever. The green key, though, is attached to the green stone, which is already placed in a marker that is somewhere you can't get to. So if you find one of the circles, when you're ready to move on, you use the green wand, which will take you somewhere new, where you can actually open up a passage back to the central tower, meaning that the green key then becomes useless for that area because now you can get there without having to teleport. That means you can take the green marker stone out and put it somewhere else if you need it. Exploring further, we find this poor dude who literally grew up and ended up being very, very good at battle, but he never could leave battle. It was so ingrained in his head that he just couldn't handle it anymore. He couldn't live a regular life after these big wars, so he came here to continue fighting. He wasn't even looking for any items. He wasn't looking for money. He was looking to fight, and so that's all he does, which is really sad. Here is another instance of checking everything, as these little gravestones here are very important. You need to click on every single one of them, and you need to see the words appear on the screen to know you are clicking in the right spot. If it says nothing is here or nothing happened, then you've clicked in the right spot. Otherwise, you'll find this key, and it's not showing up physically on the gravestone, so you won't know until you click on them correctly. So make sure you're aiming down so that you can get the proper items. In this area is a small room. Now this room is something you need to remember, although it's not obvious right away, at least not to me. There's a magic circle, but this is the spot where a small blacksmith will come to help you repair your weapons, and this will come into play soon. If you head into your item menu and press square, you can actually look to see what the keys you've collected are. And we're at this point, we have 4 keys, and they're all very helpful. They're all necessary. The Expedition's key is okay. It really just opens one door for you. The Priest key does open a couple doors, but the Earthfolk key is very helpful since it opens quite a few chests. The Earthfolk are pretty much dwarves, and they are the blacksmiths, the ones who create weapons, and so using this key on chests and doors will find you some new weapons and pieces of armor, which really are invaluable when you don't find too many, because durability then comes into play. So you got to make sure you get this key so you can find where you need to go. Eventually, you find lava blocking your path. Now, this lava is used to fuel the forges for the Earthfolk, but this section right here is actually blocking your path. There's no way across. The only thing you can do is pull out a large weapon that can break stone and bust these faces up. This was a little difficult. I only realized that I could do this when I had nowhere else to go, and it seemed like the lava needed to be stopped. I tried a few things and eventually decided to try and hit the faces that were spewing out the lava, since, I mean, they look a little different than the rest of the environmental stuff, and I've never seen them before, and that you don't really see them again. So it's kind of helpful to, again, try things. Just expect that you might be able to break something. Pull out a big old weapon and just start bashing them, because you never know what you'll find out. Heading into the next area is a blacksmith's shop, but they tell you with this like disembodied voice that he's going to go do something, and you never see this person. I think you can come back and see them. I never come back myself, I just didn't need to, but eventually you should be able to come back and see this person. Now, while I was in this room, I realized that I could break the barrels, but also there were so many lights on some of these like things that I decided to shoot fire at some of the other ones in the middle of the room that were not lit up. These like candles, these braziers. I decided to shoot fire at them, and they do light up and open a door but directly behind where I am now, and it gives you a little bit more gear, which is helpful. I also pick up the Earthfolk's map. Now I have a couple maps, and let me show you. This is what a map looks like. It is freaking useless, man. You might as well just memorize where you've been and where you're going, because holy crap, where is this? I have no clue where I am on this map. It might be a completely different orientation than where you are right now. Now, looking at the map now that I know the maps, I actually saw where I could have been, but it's so difficult to tell the first time through that you'll be lucky to actually figure it out. It's just useless. There is a 3D map that I never actually used somehow, but if you use the 3D map, it can be more helpful since I believe it centers on your character rather than just showing you this big map with nothing, no markers, nothing. It doesn't have anything on it. While I was playing, I realized that I could level up my spells, and it was actually kind of necessary to level some of them up, like my healing spell and my fire spell. I wanted them to do more damage or heal better, and the only way to do that is to use the spell over and over. Well, it's not easy to do because they take so long to level up that you're not just gonna get there when you need to. But next to the priest is sitting on a pool that will heal your MP if you drink from it. It is infinite as far as I can tell, so what you do is you go into the pool, drink the water, turn to the wall, and then start doing things. Now, what I did here was I used Earth Heal, I used Resist Fire, and I used my Fireball. Because my Fireball was at level 3, it would linger on the wall, hurting me, doing damage, and also doing fire damage to me. So it would block fire with the Resist Fire, which leveled up Resist Fire. Then I would heal myself, leveling up the heal spell. I then went around to the little hedgehog guys that you saw earlier in the dungeon, and you can drink from this fountain and go shoot them with any of your offensive magic you want over and over. Come back out, drink from the spring, go back in, and they'll have respawned. There are a few places where enemies will infinitely respawn, so it's helpful to come here and level up your offensive magic very quickly. There are places later in the game for some of the stronger spells, because some of the stronger spells instantly kill enemies, which means that you don't get a number of hits. It's just like one hit on this hedgehog, and it's so quick that you never really get level ups. But this part is really good for the wind spell and the fireball spell you get near the beginning of the game, and this is invaluable. Honestly, the magic in this game is so helpful, it's worth leveling up for a little bit. After leveling up a bit and searching around because I didn't know where to go, I realized I had gone past this door a couple times and never went into it. I thought the fog here might be poison, but it's not. It's cold. It's so cold down here that it is permeating through the door and making a fog outside of it. You don't actually get hurt by walking into it. This is the Earth Folk's forge. It is frozen over, which obviously means something bad happened to them because they're supposed to be using lava to forge weapons. This place is frozen over. This whole section is kind of difficult to see in because of the fog. You also have rooms full of ice everywhere that you can't break with regular fire. It's just impossible. There are a couple things you can use your fireball to break, but not everything. The idea here is to search around until you can find a way out of the back of the forge, looking for a way to bring heat back into it. The enemies in this game are just crazy. Look at this guy who is sprinting and throwing icicle bolts at you and is completely, like he's hard to fight because he's fast. He doesn't have a ton of health, but it is crazy to think like how slow you move in comparison to this guy who sprints at you and throws icicles at you. It's difficult. So when you go into a room, you just need to be slow, especially if you have a door. Walk in a little bit, make sure one doesn't spawn, and then you can back out if you need to. It's very easy to get lost in that icy forge because it kind of looks the same everywhere. Everything is covered in fog. It is hard for me to tell where I was and where I was going, but eventually I find my way out the back, and there's a big section of lava. Clearly something has happened to stop the flow of lava. So we fight our way through these dragon enemies, and I pick up a cool crescent axe. This area right here has a boss. This demon is sitting in the lava. Now, the Earthfolk King goes mad from the darkness that has been seeping up when the shrine was opened during this whole debacle a long time ago when the city originally fell. He went crazy, got a demon in here to block the forge to freeze everything over in the forge, froze himself along with a bunch of the other Earthfolk, and just fucked right off. So if you kill this big demon in the lava, he will then unblock the lava, allowing it to flow freely back into the forge. Earlier when going through the forge when it was frozen, there was a dwarf who was just standing there frozen, one of the frozen guys from when the Earth King went crazy, when the Earthfolk King went crazy, and he has no clue what's happened. He was frozen before he knew, so he's just going to return to his quarters. This is where I said to remember this place earlier. That's where his quarters are. The problem is this is one of the things I had a little bit of a problem with. I don't know where his quarters are. You need to go back and talk to him. He has something important for you. Once you leave this area, you have more to do here, but once you leave and he leaves, he is back there. It's so hard to find him. That's one of the things I didn't like, and I ran around for a little while hoping to eventually find him. And I did, but man, it's just kind of like unnecessary where you could at least have some idea. Like he says, I'll go back to my quarters in this central area right here. At least then it gives me an idea of like, okay, I shouldn't go past that part. I'll find him somewhere around here. But no, he just says, I'm going back to my quarters. I almost think it's a door here somewhere, because this area is not actually complete. I was a little confused. You actually go back and forth in this area a couple times. There are several doors that you need to unblock from the lava. Just because you unfroze the place doesn't mean that you have missed the rest of the stuff in this area. You need to now stop the area from being overflowed with lava so that you can reach the rest of the doors. After exploring, I find the icon of ice, which is something I need to place in this pedestal near where I killed that demon. The other problem is that, so you go back and forth, you kill the demon, you go back and get the dwarf, then when you get the icon of ice, you bring it back here, but you're still not done here. There's another boss right below you. After searching around for well over 45 minutes, I finally realized that this section that was blocked off before now allows you to walk through it. But because it's in this kind of strange spot you've already been in several times, and it doesn't it's not very apparent right away that it's unblocked, you need to go through here. And there is one of the tougher first bosses that I've fought. Now, when I say tougher first boss, I mean it's the toughest boss I've fought so far that you're supposed to fight right now. This is the way to progress. This guy standing over here is, he's pretty tough. Now, if you stand back, I actually use the wind spell to hit him from far away. I use up quite a bit of mana. This spell isn't very strong, and I don't think he takes a lot of damage from this wind spell, but let me tell you what, it does help. You can see my magic level going up, meaning that the game recognizes that I'm actually dealing damage. You can also see I'm now shooting 2 wind blasts because my spell leveled up to level 3, and it makes it stronger, which is helpful, but he is just tough. He has a lot of health, so what you need to do is come in here with a lot of healing spells and healing items, and then just try and circle strafe around him. I'm fairly certain that if I had taken out the bow and arrow and bought some arrows, I probably could have killed him from far away, but this guy moves so fast. He's got these cool fire spells. He's like a firebender, man. I don't understand why they made some of these guys so utterly fast. Like, the idea should be that you can move and keep up with him, but no, you can't. You've just got to hope that you can hit him enough to deal the damage. But it's a good thing I had used the wind spell before, because he was much easier after that. Now when you come back into the forge, there are a lot more places you can explore again, because some of those rooms were covered in ice, and now that the lava has stopped flooding the caverns, you can visit those extra rooms and get some extra things. I finally do come back, and after looking for a little while for the dwarf, I find him in these quarters, and he gives us a key. Very important, you gotta get the keys. There aren't even that many keys in the game, but you need them when you find them. Heading back into the forge, now that the lava is gone and you've gotten the key from the dwarf, allows you to go across to the central tower yet again. But this time, you are a floor lower. You have a whole new section to explore. Here, we meet a man named Shane, who is researching all the stuff that happened to the people here, and I believe he was here for a while, but he intends to stay here for a lot longer. But he wants to just understand what happened. It's the holy place of the forest folk, so he wants to know what they were doing, who they are, and he also believes that the undead or some of the monsters here are dark forest folk who have been turned by the darkness, kind of like the ancient people did a long time ago. Exploring the second floor around the central tower leads us to all these rooms with more arrows being fired, bodiless knights who just inhabit this armor that is walking around. I don't think you can kill them, or at least what I did didn't kill them, until I eventually walk into this weird room with these faces on the walls. This area is really cool. There's just a lot going on. I believe in this room there are some hidden walls and things you can do by breaking one of the faces on the wall. Here in this room, I find a boss. Now, this guy might be the wise sage, I'm not sure, but this guy is not good. He uses the room to his advantage by making the floor move up and down, traps from the walls come out to try and spear you, and also shoots magic at you. He is pretty tough, but he looks kind of weird. He's got these very weird horns. None of the other creatures really have horns like this, so it's hard to tell exactly who he is. I don't know if he's anyone in particular other than a mage who has fled and is trying to hold out in this room and has lost himself to the darkness. I'm not sure, but he is tough. I use a new spell I'd gotten, a light spell called Retribution, something I use quite a bit. It's a spell you need to be kind of close, but not too far away or not too close to actually activate. For some reason, it has this weird caveat where it doesn't quite attack who you're looking at unless you are exactly the right distance from them. So you just need to be careful when you're using it. But it does do a lot of damage, especially at level 3, and it will stun the enemy for just a short time, giving you a chance to get close and attack with your weapon, which is really helpful. As I move on closer to the Widow, which are the snake dudes, this guy right here is sitting with no weapon, and his name is Kyle. It's very, very cool name. Kyle was actually part of Master Septigo's squad. He is a more strong version of all the guys, and he's actually alive here. He just doesn't have his weapon. He's stuck and doesn't want to move forward. He's losing the will to push on because he doesn't know where Master Septigo is, and he doesn't know where that guy's sword is either. And he doesn't know where the idol is, which he says they did have an idol, but he doesn't know where it is. You have the idol now, so you need to take care of things, and he'll tell you that it's really important to do so. As you explore all these areas, your goal is to connect them together in the central tower, because the central tower allows you to travel up and down to all the floors, making it easier to get back to where you need to go if you need to go somewhere else, because many times you'll find yourself backtracking. There are actually special things in little pedestals next to the bridges that will help lower them if you place something in them. And these are just little connectors that help. And there's not so many of them. Some of the bridges are broken. Some of them are already down. Some of them you can only travel one way. But the few bridges that you have the option to do this with are really important to find them. So like I said, it's always good to keep exploring. Not far into some of these broken tunnels and a hole in the wall, we find an enormous bug. Now, we've been fighting these smaller bugs, and this mama bug over here, she's big. She's not really that difficult. She's so big she can't get out of the tunnel. So the idea here is to lure her over to the tunnel entrance and then shoot magic at her, your bow and arrow, your crossbow, whatever you need to do. After finding 2 release rocks, you can place one down here and then up above this area to open a door that shows a big area with these guardian guys. Now this is where, if you kept the blinding crowns, you can put them on the pedestals and these guys will actually stop fighting you. They will just stand still and you can walk around them and get the treasure, or you can actually fight them and get some experience to level up. You can also use your magic on these guys because they will infinitely respawn. The idea is that you're supposed to have brought those crowns, or at the very least go back and get them, and this is a good place to level up the stronger magic, the magic that would kill lower level enemies too quick for it to actually work as a level up spot. This portion of the game was a little confusing for me, and I'll have to explain in a minute what exactly I did to get past these flames from the Witta heads in the wall, because you'll need to go past these. This is actually the castle where the Witta Queen lives, and we need to go here. But first, you have a few things to do in this area, like finding the icon of fire to help light up the area, as well as finding different amulets, rings, and bracelets that will help you on your way. You can find some magic, you'll be fighting a lot of enemies, and just exploring and finding out a little bit more lore, because we're getting closer to the end of the game, and this is where we start to learn a little bit more deeper things that I've talked about already near the beginning that would take a little while to put together yourself. So there's a lot of places around here with writing on the walls and just things to explore. There are tons of water-filled caves with these little, I don't know, monster type things. They almost look like they're Nessies, but there's a bunch of them and they really do a lot of damage if you let them. You just need to stay back and not let them bite you because it's just too much. Heading up to this castle here, this is where you really need to pay attention and find words written on the walls. Now, this is a waterlogged area with traps and tons of equipment and items and even some hidden walls that you'll need to pay attention to. This is a difficult area just in general because of these enemies here, but also the traps. You'll definitely get dunked into the water or in poison because you've tried to open a treasure chest. There are tons of chests up here. There's a lot to do up here. As I explore, sadly, I find a cell where some of the adventurers that came in with Septigo are held. Now, these guys can leave. I've opened the door, but they are so demoralized and were beaten so badly by those snake dudes that they just stay here. And if you talk to one of them a bit, he'll give you the icon of fire, and he says that there are some scribbles that should show how to get inside the Queen's palace. Now, I didn't realize this, but this is true. In fact, one of these guys actually says right here a hint in how to get past that fire, but I didn't remember it for the next day when I started to play the game. I just kind of went on and didn't realize that, well, they actually gave me a hint. So I'll tell you exactly what that is in just a minute when we get there. But here he says, did you see the statues of a snake? That's the Queen. The snake statues make it hard to enter. He's talking about the fire, and yet the monsters enter with no problem. Duh. At this point, I am pretty confused about where I need to go, so I spend a lot of time searching for anything I've missed, and I find quite a bit. Just some rooms off to the side I missed with some equipment, some special hidden doors, and this merchant I missed the first time around by that big mama bug. He's very, very close to her in a small little cavern on the side. He's confused, doesn't know how he got here, and actually no one knows. He does have a name, but he's just here. He's very odd, and he carries some helpful stuff for you. Don't forget, the merchants do run out of stock of important things, so if you need something like mushrooms to heal your MP or health, you'll want to come to this guy so that you can grab those extra things if you've exhausted or gotten close to exhausting some of the other merchants, which I like to use magic. I like to throw it out everywhere. So I've used a lot of mushrooms because it's a good way to heal. It's a quick way to heal. It's a good way to deal damage. And it's a good way to stay out of damage because you're so far away. I don't know, man. It's just really helpful to use magic. So this guy off to the side is in just a weird spot. So go buy a bunch of crap from him. Over by the lighthouse where you place the icon of fire outside here, if you look over the edge, you can see a boat that has broken. And if you look closely, there's a small ledge underneath the water. I just kind of hoped that this would work, but if you walk off the ledge and wear the amulet of water breathing so you can breathe longer underwater, you can actually land down here, take a little bit of damage, but you can walk around, and there is a submerged cave with the person who was originally on this boat living inside of it. If you talk to him, he wants you to give him some poison because he hates all the monsters who keep stealing his fish. This guy is just content with staying down here, even though we know how to get out now. There's actually a way to get out of here, but he just wants to stay here and catch fish, I guess. I don't know, man. Everything's about to go to crap once I return this idol, so maybe not. But to get the poison to him, I didn't do this myself, but you can use one of your crystal vials and go back to the beginning of the game where we saw the guy named Mista, who had the icon of healing behind a door next to him. If you drink from that little pool next to him, it's poison, but you fill it up in your crystal vial, you can bring it back to this guy and he'll use it. I don't know what it gives you, but it wasn't important to beat the game. Now, this is the part where it gets really, really funny because I was at my wit's end. I just didn't understand what I needed to do. In the castle behind me, in the small little temple, there is writing on the walls that explains how to get past this fire. I didn't read it. I just didn't see it on the wall. I tried clicking everywhere and I must have missed it at some point, which happens. It's absolutely understandable because some of the things you need to be looking at perfectly to get it to activate. I just missed it. So I'm standing here in front of the fire thinking to myself, like, what do I do? So I go into my inventory and I start messing around with all the items in my inventory. Just like, okay, what can I equip? What new things do I have? Thinking in my head, like, okay, I got to remember something maybe I missed. So I'm talking to chat. We're talking about like, I don't even know where I could possibly go now. As I'm looking through my inventory, I realize I've picked up some Wida equipment. I have a bracelet, a necklace, and a ring. Now, I didn't want to equip the bracelet because my bracelet is the clarity bracelet, which gives you tons of MP and even gives you a chance at casting magic. It's a very important item if you want to use magic. Otherwise, you have almost no MP to work with. But I noticed that the Wida bracelet said something about reducing your mind to give you something else, which I thought, okay, maybe that means it's gonna like make my mana go down or maybe it'll like drain my mana. And I was like, all right, let me give this a try. I want to see what this does because it says it's in exchange for mind power. So I equip it. And when I do, the fire stops. This is because I have the ring and the necklace equipped from the Wida as well, because they're both actually decent pieces of gear at this point for me. One gives me health, one gives me some defenses. I didn't know that you have to equip all three to get through the fire. But because I didn't know what else to do, I sat in front of this thing for like half an hour talking with chat, just equipping and unequipping things, and then suddenly it went away. So that was really bizarre because I was almost about to be like, I might have to look at a guide. I can't figure this out. Just happenstance. No clue why, but there is a way to tell. And I told you earlier, those guys told me that the snakes can get in here very easily. So it starts to like make sense. Okay, if the snakes can get in here, how can we make ourselves as close to a snake guy as possible? Equipping all the Wida gear, because they tell you these guys are Wida. And then the thing on the wall inside of the temple does say that you need to equip the gear and you'll be allowed in. That was my clue. I just missed it. So I don't know how that happened. Inside the Wida castle, before we meet the Wida Queen, we meet this guy named Akriel, who is an adherent to the Wida Queen, and she speaks her desires through him. And he just stands here and says, like, yeah, she's cool and stuff, and we capture people, ha ha ha, okay, get out of here, you're living, so you can't be in here. That's it. She just says it over and over. But he does tell you that she makes people into Wida, which kind of sucks. But he's waiting for the Dark One to come back. And I'm like, I don't think he's coming back, buddy. Just past Akriel is these two snakes that come out of these little pits in the ground. Now, this is a little boss, and they are tough, man. They can poison you and kill you in seconds, especially because the second you enter the room, both heads come out of the ground and fight you. However, there is a necklace you can wear that will reduce the area enemies detect you in. This helps so that when you walk in the room, you aren't immediately assaulted by both of them. In fact, usually only one will come out if you equip the amulet. This means that you can take one out slowly with a bow or a crossbow and just keep hitting them, or even magic, and you can do this over and over and then turn to the other one and kill them. I came into the room several times trying to hit these guys, shoot at them. It's like impossible to get around this. I don't know how you would do it, but I don't know how you do this melee. It's definitely something you want to do ranged. Dropping down into the pit where those snakes were leads us a few corridors down until we find the Widow Queen herself. She is a bit of a tough battle, but much easier when you're in the room with her than those two snake heads. It's just they cover too much of an area. This woman does summon a bunch of little snakes on the ground. So at my feet right now, there are tons of little snakes crawling around. They do hurt you and they do get in the way. No, it is not worth trying to fight them because they spawn infinitely. My idea, of course, was to use the crossbow or bow again, so that way I didn't have to get too close. Now, it's still worth it to equip magic and a sword, run around in a circle, and when you get close, whack her with your sword, and when you get further away, use some magic. But it's just a tough fight in general. Obviously, she's spitting out poison here. The little balls she throws, not too hard to dodge, but the poison is, and if you get poisoned, of course, not only are you taking damage, but you're poisoned. You've got to get rid of it because you will continue to take damage. As far as I know, I don't think it heals itself, so it's much more worth to just heal it as quick as possible. At this point, there aren't too many poison sources, so it's good to just carry about 10 antidotes on yourself for an easy, free way to heal poison for when it comes up, because it can devastate you. These small snakes can also, I believe, stun you. You can use a forest root, which will heal practically anything but poison, to heal the paralysis. But it's just a tough battle, man. They put a lot against you in some of these later boss fights, and you move slow and you have limited options. It feels like they've got everything. After her, we get this cute little area where we can ride these faux mine carts around, and it's just exploring and finding a few items here and there in this spot. It is difficult because if you ride one of these things the wrong way, it will send you careening off into nothingness. And as I said before, when you die, you must reload. So if you haven't saved in about 20-30 minutes, you're really going to regret not having checked the rail first before you got on one of these things, and then it just kills you. In this area, it's important to find this orange egg that you can see in my inventory. It's called a strange egg. This is important. You need a strange egg to move on, so make sure you grab these before you leave. In the minecart area, there is a door that leads to this door, which is locked. However, on the left side of it is a small window that will open as long as you look at it correctly. If you don't, you will miss it. And I missed it the first time. Someone had to remind me that this is actually something, and I had missed it. If you give this guy inside an egg, he is happy and will let you go through the door. He is also an NPC who is oppressed by the widow. He speaks kind of oddly, like he's missing a bunch of letters or a bunch of words in his sentences, but he does sell you stuff for scales and bones and claws, which you get from enemies. So while you can sell the scales, bones, and claws to a merchant for a little bit of money, this stuff right here is really helpful because obviously it just raises physical energy by 1 when used, which is great. He has 99 of them, and if you use them, you get stronger. And then the widow's arrow goes in the widow's bow when you get the widow's bow, and those arrows don't miss. They will home in on their target, which is helpful. So if you have those things, you can trade with them, and you can go past them to near the end of the game. This area is the home stretch. I have about 4 hours left before I hit the end of the game, and we're fighting some kind of cool enemies. This skull with this purple aura around it is tough. If you get close, it will hurt you, which means you gotta take one or you gotta hit him with magic or a bow, which, I mean, it kind of sucks at this point. The bow and arrow, like, you use arrows a lot if you want to use them, but you gotta buy the arrows. And then if you want to use magic, you've gotta buy the mushrooms to heal your magic, or constantly go back to the pool to heal your mana. Because like I said, all the items in the game are finite in a way. Once you buy them out from all of the different merchants, that's it. You need to be careful. As I continue to explore this area, I find a couple things. One, this is a trap room where you need to open this door and get out of the way of all the arrows, but also you might have seen some of the walls glowing green. There's a special amulet, the Mew amulet. If you wear it around your neck, you can then see hidden doors. This is great. Obviously, at this point, it's a little late, but it is helpful if you would like to go back to different areas and find hidden doors with some cool equipment in them. I don't think it's necessary, but it's very nice that they've at least included this near the end of the game, and you can see lots and lots of doors and trap doors and special things you could open. Obviously, you'll want to have been clicking on all the walls if you can. This is a thing I think you call in Doom, an old thing they called wall humping, where you walk up to the wall and drag your character across it, just hitting the use button over and over. Yeah, I think they called it wall humping because Doom guy would go, huh, 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 or something like that. And this is what you do in this game. Although now that you have the amulet, you don't have to do that. You can see all of those special doors. I head back to the Widow Queen's castle and explore around a bit once I find the Widow key. I find a door that opens, and here I find my old friend and teacher, Septiago. He is dead. Now, he also leaves his blade, the lawful blade, the blade actually carried by the king here, found many years ago, passed down through the generations, and given to him as a special blade. It does say it appears to have no powers, so, well, I still would like to take it because it's my friend's sword. And you can actually tell here if you pay attention closely, on the wall behind him, etched in blood, is a note left by Septiago. He has given up and he does not want to turn into one of these snake people. He fought valiantly for a long time, but just did not want to succumb to the poison they left with their fangs. So he killed himself. It's very sad, but this is what happens. So we take his sword and we push on. Pushing further and further down in the ancient city, we arrive at more ruins. Of course, the whole place is in ruins, but this one's special. It's very waterlogged here, and we get a special magic spell from Dark, and we can tell by the gravestones and the notes left here, this is actually left by the ancient people. This is even older than the ancient city itself, because it speaks of darkness, and the ancient people are the ones who embraced the dark. The people who lived in the ancient city, the Forest folk are actually the ones who liked the light. So this is an even older section of the ancient city that branches out. This is just before we get to the Dark Shrine. We can't quite make it there yet, there's still some stuff in our way, but exploring this area gets us some new magic and some useful items. Strewn about in different areas, suspended in this purple glowing aura, are pieces of armor. This is actually Lord Mew's armor. He was the most feared general of the Forest folk, and he took the fight directly to the darkness. He is the most prolific fighter against the darkness as well, so much so that near the end of his life, the darkness did not like how strong he was, and they took his armor, which was very powerful, and scattered it and sealed it away so that no one else could use it, thinking that his armor was part of his power, which it was, sure. But during his fight, near the end, his sword arm and sword became poisoned and cursed, and he killed himself, cut off his arm, all this crazy stuff, and then they scattered his stuff around. Now, I don't know how to open this myself. I never did. I actually got to the end of the game on accident before I found out how to open it. But there is a way to unseal his armor and use it in the final fight. I traveled through many rooms full of new enemies, flying imps that shoot terrible magic at you, running, sprinting enemies that just look crazy. They just veer off out of nowhere and jump down and sprint at you. Exploring around this area as well with the Mew amulet equipped, we find a special 3-bladed sword, one that in reality would be useless and more decoration than anything, but in this game, it's super powerful. Honestly, it's a very strong weapon that you'll probably use until not too long from now. There is a small puzzle shortly after this section where if you read this stone, it tells you exactly how to activate the buttons in what order: earth, water, fire, and then wind. They're just 4 buttons on the walls, and if you activate them incorrectly, you fall down into a chute and you must escape and come back. This tells you exactly the order to press them. You just pick what comes first and then that's it. Beyond this trick door, we find a special spring that finally gives you full HP and MP when taken. So before the other healing vials and the things, the little healing springs gave you either MP or just HP, this one gives you everything. This is the one that you want to take with you to the end of the game and just everywhere after you find it. Here's an interesting little area, a bridge with wind being shot across it. Now, I thought I would be knocked off immediately, but no, as long as you stick to the left side of this bridge, you can cross it pretty easily. If you just let it push you, of course it will knock you down, but it's not too bad. Just before this area, you will find Saric's Key, which finally begins unlocking some of the more important doors and chests you'll need for the end of the game. In one of these chests is the icon of water, something I actually don't use. I miss a completely optional area and accidentally head towards the boss, fight him, and that's it. So if you would like to go to this optional area to find some cool stuff, you can. I'll tell you where once we get there. Once I move around this place a little more, I find a special NPC encased in stone. His name is Saric, who I have the key for, and he has hidden his, or tried to hide his key so you couldn't just get to his stuff unless you were worthy of getting it. He says quite a few things to us about the past. This guy right here is the one I spoke of in the very beginning of the video. He is the one who found a special type of water that could help create life. However, this water was tainted, and when he created life to help fight the darkness, it ended up going mad. He really didn't need to mess with life like this, and because of that, he felt so bad he encased himself in stone. This is not the way to handle things, of course. Another way to try and fight through the light and darkness, you need a balance. So his idea of creating false life was obviously not working. And they killed a bunch of the forest folk and earth folk, and then he decided, that's it, I can't let anyone else get this. Using Saric's Key, I find a special ring that says it is kingly. This is the ring I need to wear for the door to open for me where the king's throne was so long ago. I return back to these bosses here because I'm a much higher level and I have much stronger equipment. I am able to kill all of these 4 armed guards in this area. The door that you need to open to be kingly is actually containing the king himself as a skeleton, and he is surrounded by skeletons who he will summon. This is the last place in the game that you can grind efficiently. He will summon infinitely these skeletons as long as he's alive, and you can use all of your magic spells to deal damage. The room before this, you will get a special lightning spell that will shock enemies and come down and branch out. Leveling it up is very helpful for the end of the game, I'll be honest. So it's worth it to save at the save point directly behind you here and then just work on leveling this spell up. He is hard though, I'll be honest with you. I died several times just trying to level up and fight him. It's very easy to get blindsided by these skeletons who are very strong, and he uses magic. But if you get caught in a little gaggle of skeletons in this room, you're practically done for. You just won't be able to kill them quick enough. Now, the way I died a lot though is this lightning spell, which is so utterly strong and helpful, but it can kill you as well. So don't get too close to it when it goes off, or it will literally kill you from full health. Your own spell. That's actually how I died most at the end of the game here, was killing myself with my own spell. This does not yield any results though, other than I killed the skeleton king, whatever, that's fine, that's great. But behind the king's throne, on the ground here, is a pile of bones, reaching toward that lightning spell. But also, just before this door that looks suspiciously like another item we have. You need 4 black eyes to open this door. Once you put those eyes in this door, it opens up the heart of the forest, the very center, deep part of the forest. This is where all of the light the king had gathered is concentrated, in this small section right here. If you've collected the lawful blade, you will insert it into this spot, and it will be powered up into the Moonlight Sword. This is a very cool sword because it's in all of FromSoft's games. Every single one. Pretty much. There may be a couple games that don't have this, but Dark Souls definitely has a Moonlight Sword, and this sword is the most powerful weapon in the game that you can have, especially against the dark. It's got a special magic attack that if you press X, square, and then triangle, you can then fire this big bolt that comes from the sky, almost like the lightning spell you have. It's really cool and extremely helpful. It's very strong. However, it's really hard to pull off the combo, X, square, triangle. It's like exactly this button combination in a very specific timing. I don't know why. It is so utterly hard. Now here you see I try it. That's actually the lightning spell, because if you press triangle, you're casting your spells. So I actually go and unequip the lightning spell. I unequip all spells so that I don't have any issues. Then I try over and over and over and over. I mean, I try so many times just trying to get that spell out one time. I almost find a sort of useful method, counting 1, 2, 3. At each of those numbers, I press X, square, triangle. 1, 2, 3. But let me tell you what, when you're running around in the middle of battle, it is not easy to get that combo off with that timing perfectly. Sometimes you just get pushed around. Sometimes you swing and just nothing comes out. It's really difficult to deal with. But as we leave the room, we also get talked to by the skeleton, which has just a little life left in it. Who is this skeleton? The game sometimes tries to make it seem like it's the king, even though the king is supposed to have died and that just shouldn't be him. It's kind of a point of contention, like, is this him or is it not him? It might just be the translation, it might be, lazy on their part, maybe they're just trying to streamline things, I don't know, but apparently this is not supposed to be him. I come to this section of the game where this is actually close to the very, very end. The door in front of me is where you put the icon of water, something I didn't realize I could do. But to do it, you must walk through this poison water. At least that's what I found. And I realized there was nothing in that room. I didn't have the icon of water yet, and I didn't see a pedestal to put it on. So I skipped it, thinking, I must have to run through this water somewhere. I spend some time running through the water trying to find any kind of door. The first door on my left I find sends me into an even deeper pit of poison. I can't say anything because the screen is beet red, and I can't navigate, so I die. I realize, okay, I can't go through that door on the left, so I must need to go further. I run through, healing myself, clicking on things until finally I find a door that does not lead to my death. And this is the end of the game. This is the last stepping stone towards the darkness. This person here is very tough to fight. He or she is flanked by archers all over the place and flies up in the air, shoots magic, turns very quickly, so the circle strafing isn't necessarily the best. It is helpful though because the archers will try and shoot you and will miss as long as you continue to circle strafe, or at least sometimes miss. A lot of this just turned into using healing over and over and over and over, and then slashing with the Moonlight Sword in hopes that I could do enough damage. It does finally end up happening, but man is it tough. Suddenly, past this boss, down a corridor, we see a dark pedestal, covered in darkness. If we place the Idol of Sorrow here, it will be accepted, and it will shatter. The whole area actually shatters, and we plummet to the ground, where we are inside of something. This section of the game is very gross. It's like the inside of darkness or something like that. You've got these crazy enemies popping out of the ground and the walls. It's very, very tough, and you can spend a lot of time fighting things here, or you can try and run past. There are so many enemies, and some of them spawn infinitely, I think. At least that's what it seemed like. So maybe just take your time and try and find the way through by running through and finding which corridor is correct. I died quite a few times and had to come back here over and over until I found out which corridors were the right way to go, because once you get past here, it makes it much easier. However, the last save point of the game is before this, so if you get caught down here, or if you barely make it through, that's it. You're screwed unless you make it through. But now we're inside of this crazy large cavern, looking for what we hope to be the darkness. The enemies here are massive and spawn infinitely again, and I find myself in front of this weird looking thing. I'm not sure what it is, but I try my best, as you can see here, to use the Moonlight Sword to use magic, and I just can't get the magic from it to happen. Like, it just doesn't work. I don't know why. I have so many problems. I have mana, I have my magic meter up, I have my stamina meter up, and I just can't get it to proc every time I do it. Like, half the time would have been nice, but this is just too many times. I think the timing is just way off, and I wish they would have taken the time to figure that out. But it doesn't matter, because for some reason it keeps targeting the monster behind this thing. This is because apparently you cannot kill it with anything but several strikes from the Moonlight Sword. Now, I believe it's 3, and every time you hit it, it will send you off the side of this platform. As far as I can tell online, everyone has said it takes around 3 hits to actually kill this dude. And so you just walk up, smack him, he sends you off to the side, you must then find your way back up to him and hit him again. And then he's dead. 3 times and it's dead. And this is finally it. Prince Devian has used the Moonlight Sword yet again, because in the first 3 Kingsfield games, there's also a Moonlight Sword, to take care of darkness. Now, in this game, there are, I believe, 2 endings maybe. I got a good one. The good ending here is literally that we have sealed away darkness forever with this Moonlight Sword. Everything goes back to normal. Things are talked about for the far future. The Idol of Sorrow is gone, the Cursed Land has been cast away. It's actually a really good ending. Like, it ends with a very happy story. Like, everything goes well. The darkness is infinitely sealed. At least that's what the game says. And we do never come back to this story. So I have to assume that it really was sealed away. And just like every other time someone talks about the Moonlight Sword, it's remembered as a legendary sword held by kings and princes before them to seal away darkness. Well, it's true. In all the Kingsfield games, you use it to seal away some kind of evil. This blade is just that powerful. So, here we are, game 114 beaten. This game was 100% a treat. There are only the two things I had a problem with, which was there are some difficult to figure out ways of moving forward. It's not all the time, and as you can tell after I went back through the footage here, I could tell what I needed to do when I needed to do it by just paying a little more attention. During the time I was playing this, I missed a few things, which made it harder to understand what I need to do. Now, the part that I remember most was when you get the wands and you need to teleport, the lady sitting, the last priest sitting on the fountain will, once you get those, tell you if you have nowhere left to go, use the keys. Well, or the wands. Well, yeah, the green wand is what you need to use. So she's giving you this big hint, like if you don't know where else to go, use the wands. And once you do, you'll find where to go. And then of course, the fire, the Wit of Fire, was pretty obvious. That one isn't the one that I have a problem with. I missed it legitimately. It's really the big one is that key, the wand, and the dwarf saying he's going back to his quarters. I'm like, I don't know where that is. Like, why would you not, why was there no way to tell, like, I'm going back to my living quarters where the engineers were told to go live, and it's like before the forge. That's it. That would have helped me. Then I would have at least been like, okay, I'm in the right area, because I knew that the city was sectioned off specifically in certain ways. I just didn't know where his quarters actually were. He just says, I'm going back to my quarters. Okay, cool. That's great, man. Where in this large city are you going? Because I don't know where you're going. But I ended up finding him. It wasn't impossible. This game was not impossible. I didn't even use the guide. I did get help from people in the chat, especially Nicholas. Nicholas, thank you so much. You're very helpful. He did a great job giving hints without giving away what I needed to do, which helped a lot. I think the game could have used I don't want handholding, absolutely not, but a little bit more of an easier way to tell some of the hints. Like I said, walking up to the walls and the gravestones, sometimes you miss them because you click around and you aren't looking at it correctly. So it would be helpful if it was easier to tell, like, you walk near it and your character looks at it and then you read it. But some of the places where there's writing on the walls, you can't tell. The low resolution and the fact that those things are etched in there and they don't look correct, it's just weird. But regardless of this, the game was fantastic. I loved it. It does get an A though, a very high A, a 9.9, because I do feel like the biggest issue for me was how utterly slow you turn. This is not about the slow movement and attacking and pacing of the character. This is the fact that your turning speed is so low. If you want to make a 180, it takes a commitment to make a 180. This is not, I think the turning could have been sped up. Your character movement doesn't have to be. Everything else was great, but the turning, like, it's important to be able to turn. So I think a 25% increase, maybe even like a 15% increase to your turn speed would have been fine. Just a little bit of something. Otherwise, I just feel so sluggish. Like walking, running, swing your sword, all that's a little bit slow. And it felt like, it made sense, right? You're a person, you're supposed to be a person with all this armor on. You are a sword master, but you also aren't invincible. This place isn't about being this cool, strong character. It's about people in despair trying their best to stop this darkness. And this guy is doing his absolute best, which is great. That's why the game feels great. But the turn speed is just too slow. A small increase would have been great. It doesn't matter though. It still gets such a high score on my list, and I am so smitten by this game that it has kicked out Devil May Cry 1 on my top 5 PS2 games list. So it is number 5 now, one of my top 5 favorite games. This is number 5. Can't believe it. Loved it. I love the lore. I loved finding environmental things, reading things, figuring things out that way. It's just wonderful. It's just a wonderful game. I absolutely recommend anyone play it if they can. It is a slow game. It is a little difficult, and it's sometimes a little convoluted what you need to do next. But it is worth it if you come into it knowing that you need to pay a little closer attention to the things around you. This is just the type of game it is. So, thank you to anyone who has watched the video this long. I know this is a long video, but it's finally over and we've beaten Kingsfield. Thank you to everyone who has donated and become a member of the stream. It's the reason why we played Kingsfield. Kingsfield was expensive, and I did do a giveaway, won by Distant Fox. Distant Fox gets the game. I'm sending it to them. They get the disc, the manual, and the box. It's pretty good condition. I wanted to make sure it was like a good condition game, but $115? Damn, like so expensive. But I'm glad to have played it, and thank you to everyone in the stream. You guys were so much fun. It was probably one of the biggest streams we've had. Kingsfield is just an interesting game, so a lot of people were there. Thank you to Nicholas, the resident expert. I know he felt like he wasn't an expert at the game. He knows the game pretty well, but said a couple times he wasn't an expert. However, I think he is. He was an expert enough to give us great hints without ruining it for us. So thank you, Nicholas. Thank you, everyone. I'll be back for the next video soon. Later.